we're very pleased to have our guest calling in tonight here. His name is Jason Antos, and he is a historian. He has written a couple of books, author of a couple of books that are historical in nature about Queens. And a couple of those you may have seen if you're in the bookstore. One in particular, Queens Then and Now, is extremely popular. And he's written a book on Whitestone, on Flushing. He's done one specifically on Shea Stadium, and his most recent book is one on Jackson Heights. He is going to be the guest presenter at the Woodhaven Cultural and Historical Society on January 29th. That's a Wednesday, 1 p.m. at Emmanuel Church of Christ, 91st Avenue, Woodhaven Boulevard. And Jason joins us now. Jason, how are you?
Ed, good evening. How's everything?
It's really, really good. I got to tell you, I go to the Barnes and Noble a lot. Every time I go to Barnes and Noble, I look in the local history section, and every time I pick up Queens Then and Now, the front copy is like all worn out. It's like one of those popular books in Barnes and Noble that people pick up and browse. It's a terrific. It's a terrific book, and what I really love what you did there is the way you did the now and then pictures, like from like the same vantage point, the same view. How did you go about that process, picking the photos and choosing the view?
Well, I wanted to use photos that had not really been published in any other works up until that point. I tried to find something that was rare and unusual and something that was striking, and I must have looked through thousands of photographs from the various historical societies and also from Queens Library, from the Long Island Division, which is now called the Archives. And then once I got those photos, I would utilize the information that they contained and then try to do research to figure out where the modern-day location would be, and it wasn't always that easy.
Mm-hmm. What were some of the challenges? Like you said, it wasn't that easy. Was there one in particular that you had trouble, and then there was that one clue that just like jumped out at you that led you to the right spot?
Yeah, you would look at a photo. Sometimes it would be kind of obvious, but other times you'd look at a photo and you'd read the description on the back, which was sometimes handwritten by the person who took the photo. The late 1800s or the early 1900s, and once you read that location, you looked at the photo, you couldn't believe that was the same place. I mean, it's virtually unrecognizable. So you would always have to look for something in the background, and sometimes I would actually use a magnifying glass to examine the horizon to see if there was any sort of landmark, whether it's a hill or a home or a church, because to check out if there was a steeple or anything in the background. And 9 out of 10 times I would spot at least one thing which would give away the location. And then I would go there for real with the photo and then try my best to link it up, and that's basically how it was done.
Wow, that's fantastic. And it's something that people I think people always enjoy looking at old pictures. What do you think it is about, especially, places that you've grown up, seeing how it was before you were there and seeing how it is now? What do you think it is about looking at that then and now type of picture that people really get into? What drives them about that?
I think it's the immediacy of, how far we've come since that point. To use an example, there's a photo in my Flushing Then and Now book that I have of the homes that are along Ditmars Boulevard overlooking the Flushing Bay. Mm-hmm. And today those homes are still there. And one of the notable things about those homes that are in a row is that they have steps that led from the homes that were way up on Ditmars, because Ditmars is elevated above the waterline. And these steps would lead to the private bathing beaches located below. And today that's the Grand Central. And, the Grand Central was built in the 30s, and the photo that I use is actually from 1930. So when one looks at it, they realize that it went from looking that way to the way it does now in just a matter of months. It's not about a year or so, and that's an amazing transformation. you know, it really doesn't happen anywhere else in the world.
That's real interesting. I have a question here from the chat room for you. It says it asks if you have ever used the Museum of the City of New York on Fifth Avenue and 102nd Street.
Excuse me. Yes, I have actually. They were very helpful in doing the Queens book and the Flushing book. They have an amazing archive. The municipal archives also has a great collection, but they were very helpful. You know, it's a place that you have to call and make an appointment to go in, but they're very accommodating, and they have a lot of unusual and rare images.
Now, for the average person, if they wanted to go and look for old photos and do some research, where would be the first place you recommend that they would start?
The first place to start would be the Queens Library, primarily the Central Library on Merrick Boulevard in Jamaica, and to go to the archives up on the second floor. And that really is the greatest single collection of everything having to do with the history of Queens. I mean, basically, if they don't have it, it's because it just doesn't exist, you know, or because it's in somebody's attic. But they literally have everything. They have more than any single local historical society, or, with all credit to them, or any of the bigger historical societies in Manhattan. So they have like the main collection, and then the other local historical societies are very instrumental as well, because they have, you know, more specific items, photos, and documents pertaining to the area that they cover. But the Central Library is the most accessible. You don't need an appointment. It's open 7 days a week, which is great. It's open on Sundays. You can go down there, and you know, most of their images are digitized and on the computer, and you can just sit down and look through by area and by address, and it's really quite remarkable. So I would start there, and then visit the local historical societies also. They're very, very important.
Now, moving on another subject, one of your other books, and it was also a calendar that you wrote, was on a favorite place of mine, and that was Shea Stadium. And it looks like you wrote that about 2 years or so before it was taken down. First of all, I'm going to assume that you're a Met fan.
Big Met fan. Yep.
All right. So I mean, what access did you get when you were doing that? Did you get any additional access to walk around the stadium that the average person might not have gotten?
During the project, no. After the project, yes.
Okay.
Unfortunately, MLB and the Mets were not that cooperative during the making of the book, basically because it wasn't being published by MLB. You know, they're very, very specific on things that they'll, you know, contribute to. So a lot of the images I had to obtain were from private collectors, the newspapers, and the rest of it actually came from the Parks Department's archives, because Shea Stadium was under the auspices of the City Department of Parks and Recreation, and they actually had, or have rather, an archive in Flushing Meadows with all of the negatives and photos of the construction of the stadium and the first games that were held there and certain public events. So I had to go to all these outside sources and completely avoid MLB altogether.
Wow.
Once the book came out, and it became a very, very big success. I mean, I believe it's already in third printing. When the SNY did their documentary called Shea Goodbye, I was contacted to be the official technical advisor for the film. So I went down there, and for 2 days I was at the stadium. You know, I got to sit in the dugout and walk on the field, and I had total access for 2 days while we went over and shot this documentary. And I lent a lot of the photos that I had collected and gave it to the production team, and it's featured in the documentary. And plus, I got a credit, so just have a screen credit, you know.
Very nice. Very, very nice. Congratulations. That's great. That's great stuff.
Yeah,
so now, the other books that you've written, I see here you had one on Flushing and Whitestone, and your most recent one is on Jackson Heights. So you're starting to really develop a nice thing here where you're doing different neighborhoods. what do you find different about the three that you've done so far? You're Flushing, Whitestone, and Jackson Heights. What different challenges did they present from each other?
Well, each one is unique. There's always the first problem that one is confronted with is, are there enough images to go into these books, because they do have a quota. You have to have, I believe, 80 for the then and now, and then 180 for the Images of America series, where it's just straight archival photos. So there's always the worry of if you're going to find enough images in the amount of time, and if they're going to be relevant and interesting. And, each one is just, it's unique. There's a lot of photos on Flushing, but then when, then and now, you have to worry about if you're going to find the exact location or if you're going to find enough info on the specific photo that you're using. Because what it is you find the photo first, and then you need to find the info that goes with that photo. You need to learn about, if there's an old shop in the photo or an old business or some sort of landmark or a home. You need to figure out which home it is, where it's facing, and then you have to figure out the history behind the home, who built it, who lived there, etc., how long did it stand for. And the book like Jackson Heights, believe it or not, there isn't photographically a lot about Jackson Heights. There's not a lot available outside of promotional photos and construction photos. So we really had to dig deep and really, broaden our horizons and go to different places. We went to outside historical societies. We went to the different architectural schools and looked through their archives. We went to the Queens Chamber of Commerce, who's extremely helpful. They have a huge archive. They're the publisher of a magazine called Queensboro Magazine, and they have every issue going back to 1913. And they were gracious enough to let us scan their magazine covers and inserts that have beautiful color ads advertising Jackson Heights, and those all can be seen in the book. So we really had to go kind of outside our perimeter to get all these elements for the Jackson Heights book.
Wow, it's a lot of work, but it sounds like it paid off. So what's next? Do you have your sights set on the next project?
Absolutely. Hopefully, to try to do something on Corona, because that's a neighborhood that's gone through tremendous changes over the recent decades, and I think its history deserves to be told, because you have a lot. Corona was one of those towns where you had so many people living there for so many generations. And now those people are gone. They've either moved away or they died off or whatever. And so now the new generation of people that live there, although they care about Corona very much, and they're very representative of their neighborhood, and they're not really that aware of too much of the history, or they see something that's historic, but they really don't know what the story is behind it. And I think doing a book on this neighborhood would provide a great service to the people who live there now.
Awesome. That's terrific. Well, listen, I want to thank you for calling in. Again, everybody, you can see most of Jason's books in Barnes & Noble. You can buy them there. But also we have a link up to the Amazon page where you can see all his books. And come on out to see him on January 29th at 1 o'clock at Emmanuel. Jason, look forward to seeing you then. And thanks for calling in and talking to us.
Thanks. It was great talking to you.
All right, brother. Take care.
Take care, man. Bye.
That's Jason Antos, Queens historian and author. And